Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome in. Oh, wait. I don't know. Wait, did my captions actually start? Hold on. I just realized. I may not have captions. Captions. Ah, off to the scuff already. Yes. Truly a horrifying night has begun. Ah, there we are. Okay. Greetings and salutations, everyone. Welcome in to tonight's annual Frightful Fables. It is our 5th go-around, so anyone who's been around the channel for long enough probably knows the situation. I have shanghaied some lovely friends to go around the campfire and share some spooky tales in hopes to appease the powers that be that rest awake this time of the year. So without further ado, please give a warm welcome to my lovely guests, Miss May, aka Pyon Pyon Dice, and Cafe, also known as Cafe Kaijo, over on Twitch. And I am now realizing I don't actually have a command for... Oh wait, no I do. Do I? No I don't. I have to do it manually. Oh, Goldie to the campfire! Hello, lovely guests.
Truly a horror show.
Welcome, welcome.
I am happy to be beyond the fire.
Yes, it is so good to have you again.
It's always good to be.
Under the spooky green flame.
Spooky green flame.
Hopefully your Octobers have been good.
Are we performing this evening?
Yes. It is the same one every year. Once again. We must appease the fire.
Yes.
Have we ever figured out what we're appeasing the fire for? Have we ever asked these questions, looked inside ourselves and wondered what we've been sacrificing all these years for?
You do not ask the fire. You just do what it says.
Okay. Yes, fire.
If the fire speaks, I listen, I guess.
I will obey fire.
Yes. Look, we should be thankful it just wants stories. You know?
Right.
Once it starts
That's
asking for
fair.
living things, then we should start being concerned.
That's fair.
Things get too bad, just like...
Oh no, what if the fire is feeding our voices into an AI?
Oh my god, that would be truly terrifying.
Heck, fire.
Well, who would like to begin this night's festivities with the first
Go.
spooky story? Hell yeah. Alright, Cafe. Start us off.
Alrighty. This first one is called The Heirloom We Couldn't Bring Out.
Ooh.
In my family, there are 3 treasures that we call heirlooms. I don't know if they have any value to anyone but us. The first is our family tree. Our family tree goes back over 400 years, written over several scrolls, kept in Palwania boxes. The second is a katana. A long time ago, one of our ancestors received it as a gift from his lord. The last one is a mirror. It's not so much a mirror as it is an antique polished piece of metal. It's like something you'd see in like a Japanese history book and fits in the palm of your hand. And this also sits in like a very fine Palwiwana box. There's a very particular way that these 3 items must be handled. Only the family patriarch of that particular generation may remove the family tree from its box. The sword could be sold for a considerable amount of money, but it must never be sold. The family head must also clean and maintain the sword once a month. And the mirror must remain enshrined in the family altar, and every day it must be checked to see it is safe. It must never be taken off the family lands, not even the family head may remove it from its box. fables are something like that. This story is about that bronze mirror, if it's really true. The bronze mirror has a strange shape, round mirror
Oh.
part that sits on a hexagonal pedestal. Even if you look into this mirror, perhaps due to the rust or small scratches on it, it appears to have lost the ability to really reflect anything. However, at 2 centimeters thick, it's rather heavy and it feels kind of magical. When I was in elementary school, my friends and I had a rare item you're proud of competition where we went to the park after school and showed off our treasures. Everybody brought toys, and I took along the family mirror. I told everyone not to touch it, but of course they didn't listen to me. In the end, it was decided that I had the item most like an actual treasure, so I won. I triumphantly marched home. What was waiting for me at home was exactly what you would expect, a thorough scolding from my father. There's nothing wrong with the mirror, but my father persistently questioned me, harshly telling me off and making me promise never to touch it again. In my eyes, it wasn't like I broke it or anything, so I couldn't understand why I was getting such a treatment. However, in the end, I apologized, and that was the end of it. My father forgave me, and after that, I wasn't especially interested in it, so I didn't touch it again. And last year, I turned 20, and my father summoned me. I'd entered university and was living away from home, and I was wondering why I'd been called back. My father asked me to sit in the room with the family altar and began to speak. To sum it up, he told me about the family heirlooms and how to handle them. Our genealogy had roots in the Onmuro, and the family heirlooms came to us because of our dealings with cursed items. Most items had been donated as gifts to museums, and thus few were left. It was here that my father stopped to take a breather. I was a little fed up that he called me for such a boring story, and thinking that he'd finally finished, he started again. Now let's get to the important part, he said. Oh, come on, drowsiness was taking me over, but I couldn't do anything but sit and listen to him seriously. My father took the mirror out of the altar, put it on the table, and began talking again. The contents of the conversation were unbelievably separated from reality, but I'll sum it up. So to reason why this bronze mirror could be taken out, in history it had been taken out 3 times, and all 3 times people met disastrous ends. So why couldn't we take it out of the box? Because the mirror is a mirror that shows the person's death. Until recently, the taboo about mirror had been thought to be a superstition, but due to events 30 years earlier, it was now strongly protected. 30 years earlier, my grandmother died 30 years ago. I'd heard it was an accident, but I was never told the details. Apparently, if somebody tried to remove the mirror from this plot of land, they would meet with disaster. It was passed down that the 3 people who had tried to remove it had all met horrible fates and died.
Oh no.
The first time, it was taken out by a subordinate of Ishida Kazushige during the Sengoku era. However, after the Battle of Sekigahara and Ishida's death, it was returned. The second time was during the Second World War. Military police forcibly came to take the mirror away from metal collections, and my grandfather watched them get cut down by machine gun fire.
Oh no.
The third person.
Not Grandpa!
The third person was my grandmother. The mirror was also a possession of hers. While she was alive, my grandmother treated stories of the mirror's curse as superstition, and even took it out to show guests when they came to visit. It was a curious antique mirror that didn't reflect anything. My grandmother came to Osaka during Obon, and when she was about to leave, she bowed to the family's 3 heirlooms. When she touched the mirror, she accidentally saw her own face reflected within the mirror itself. She went pale and apparently compared her face over and over with the bronze mirror in the bathroom mirror. Then she said, "My face in the family heirloom is pitch black." My father told her it was all in her imagination, but she had apparently seen something terrifying and couldn't stop panicking. She asked if she could take the mirror to the family temple in Kyoto and have it purified. It would be against the family rules, but if it would make her feel any better, my father agreed to it. But he said he came to regret it. Why? Because of that, the bronze mirror was able to manifest its largest ever curse. At 6:04 p.m., an airplane from Hanada to Osaka took off. And at the end of its journey, all 15 crew members and 505 of 509 passengers on board died.
Oh no, why? What happened?
Oh my.
Plane crash.
Oh, yikes.
Yeah. The end. We must
Oh.
listen to their ancestors.
Oh.
That's like my worst nightmare. I'm so terrified of airplanes.
I will never bring a cursed heirloom onto an airplane.
Right? Who would? That's so unsafe.
Grandma did.
Mm-hmm.
Why isn't TSA checking for haunted heirlooms? Come on.
He's-
Let's go.
Where's their ghost division?
It's dee, dee, dee. Hold up, let me check this x-ray real quick. Ma'am, there's ghosts in here?
Yeah, like what the hell?
What is
I
this
don't
paranormal
know.
object?
I mean,
Is
I'm
there ghosts in
sorry.
your underwear?
I
Like,
I don't want to be on a flight with a haunted passenger. I'm sorry, I just can't handle it. I just feel like it's just too much of a risk, you know, flying on a haunted airplane, you know?
Mm-hmm.
right.
I
At
feel
least
like the
make
risks
your
are
ticket
too
cheaper.
high. Yeah, exactly. You should let me fly for free at that rate. Like,
Right. But I really like that one.
mhm.
Yeah, great story.
But yes, who's next? Who's next?
I can go next because I believe May, you wanted to take the last
Yeah.
spot.
I did.
All right.
Like I want that one. It's like when you go on a road trip with your friends and you're like, I want to sit in the back seat, please. Specifically, left window. That's where I want to be.
Mhm.
And everybody's like, yeah, sure, that's fine, you weirdo.
No, that's totally
Also,
fine.
Ray, the Swedish meatballs choose you, not the other way around.
Oh my god. The triple meatball. All right. One of the stories I have prepared for tonight is called The Statues Nobody Built.
Ooh.
Ooh.
They stand along the walls of a ruined city, holding a vigil for a king long since lost to time.
Oh my god, I got spotted dick, yo.
Nice.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. It's the perfect time to get snacks since we're still in the beginning.
It's true.
Mm-hmm.
Back in my seat. I'm shush now.
Somewhere deep in the heart of the Sahara Desert, there is a city. The streets of this city weave in and out of one another without rhyme or reason. Once bustling, they now lay desiccated and empty, like exsanguinated veins, begging for the flow of blood to resume. In the ancient past, there was a king by the name of Khalid, who ruled over this land as Sidonia. The king was considered by his people a mighty and moral king. In the eyes of history, however, King Khalid is seen to be fearful and cruel man. His reign was marked by prosperity for those in his favor and desolation for those without. His inner circle was pampered and lavished upon with all manner of gifts like gold, wine, slaves.
Oh no.
All of this and more awaited those who served the great King Khalid in his material plane. To the downtrodden, the slaves, peasants, artisans, and other bureaucrats, he promised salvation from struggle in the time which comes after death. Immaterial promises with no viable metric by which to weigh their validity. King Khalid, though cloaked in the Zoroastrianism, which is most common in Sidonia, followed the will of the gods, not our own. Each year, in addition to the routine sacrifice of slaves, thieves, and children of beggars, King Khaled would select one of his closest champions. Seth, welcome in. Thank you for the subscription. I appreciate it.
Welcome to the fire.
Welcome to the fire.
Welcome to the fire. Sacrifice your story.
The honored one would receive gifts of increasing magnitude from the king throughout the year. On the longest night, sacrifice would be made, and the king would commune with entities more ancient than the stars themselves. They would whisper into his ear, describing measures the king must take to stave away the wolf of starvation from his kingdom. Who to plant and where. The citizenry well understood their role in this life. Upon reaching the age of 25, they would be marked for consignment to the soil. They were not taken immediately, however. The marked would typically be allowed to live their natural lives, except in times of duress. After their deaths, they would be carted deep into the heart of the fields, where they grew their grain. They would bury them in the silent ground, an offering laid down at the altar. Wheat in the area surrounding a buried marked one would grow rapidly and with abundance. Sidonia was known as the breadbasket of prehistory. There were many winters where the burial of the marked guaranteed the survival not only of King Khaled and his subjects, but also those of neighboring kingdoms. This abundance was only the first of their blessings. The grains growing from the place where the bodies had been interned took on unique qualities. Along the head of the most central shoot of wheat, faces would appear on its fruit. The earliest reports refer to it as rebirth of the buried. The voices of the dead would ring out in sextuple, with prophecies portenting a future of joyous reward, as well as cataclysmic doom.
Welcome, Raiders.
God, we got a raid. We got a double raid.
I didn't want you to miss it. Welcome, Raiders.
Hello, Raiders. We're in the middle of telling spooky stories.
It's true.
I hope you've been having a fantastic
Don't
evening.
scare us.
We're like blowing out of the fire.
Yes, please sit down, have a snack, and relax as we weave these spooky tales.
We spin you yarns.
Hearing of the grave warnings given to the citizens, King Khaled grew intensely paranoid. In his mind, he and Sidonia were one and the same. Doom could not come for his kingdom without first taking him. His inner circle began to shrink. The luxurious gifts that his friends had come to expect gradually deteriorated until the only things bestowed on them were death threats. That year, with an offering who had not been properly prepared, entities beyond time and space were displeased. With their nature, it is impossible for us to know what their intent was and what came next. Once again, they whispered into the ear of Khalid and told him he only had 1 year left. This may have been true, or it may have been that the king fell prey to a joke his gods were playing. Thanks to his attempt at intervention, we'll never know. With only 7 cycles left before the promised day, he enacted his plan, a mass sacrifice of which the likes the kingdom had never seen. This time, not for the supplication of old gods, but the creation of a new one. Thousands scaled the walls of Sidonia in preparation. Khaled lay on a slab of stone, as deep within the city's heart, a high priest started their work. The priest began to chant words of power. Hundreds of servants moved from animal to animal, slitting throats as they went. The floor of the chamber grew slick with blood, and the servants changed their footing to avoid slipping. Yeesh. Their steps took on a new air of poise and elegance as they moved through the room. The convulsions of the recently dead formed a rhythm by which they danced. In all, 2,500 livestock had met an end on that stone floor, and as the dying animals flayed away the last of their latent energies, the king was anointed with oil delivered from the fruit of the marked. His palms were sliced open so that they would soil his feet. His priests stuffed sand into the gashes. They continued to do so until the king's extremities had doubled in weight and size. Skin dissented like the belly of one who was starving. Those who stood atop the wall had joined hands in prayer, not for their own survival, but for the success of the ritual. They too believed that King Khaled and Sidonia shared a fate. As the wind pushed them to and fro, they desperately waited for the red smoke to rise from the palace. That would be their signal to jump. Indeed, one of the priests had moved to light the fire. However, smoke never rose from the chimney. Just before the priest was set the torch to flame, one of Khaled's gods revealed itself to him. The entities had seen Khaled's machinations, and they were affronted by his attempt to place himself on their level. The sight of it was impossible for a priest to process. He stood paralyzed, trying desperately to make sense of what formed before him. He stands there still. Khaled bound to the stone slab, hands and feet heavier than any before or after, took notice of the disruption. He pleaded with the entity to allow the ritual to finish, but his pleas fell on deaf ears. The second the high priests, seeing the impending disaster, took desperate action. He overturned the basin of red oil, anointing every inch of himself with it, grabbed the torch, and ran out the door. Only a few saw the smoke that rose from the priest after he set himself alight. Those who did jumped immediately. Those who did not clung desperately to the jumpers, convinced that a mistake had been made. The ritual had been broken. The entities which had guided the city away from disaster across centuries of collaboration to freeze it in time. The king lay forever on the slab of stone, and atop the walls, human beings were struck like statues in various stages of falling from the impossible heights. They're still there today. In the now eternal city, the gods of Khaled began to take every citizen as recompense for the violation of their contract. Great king. Denied the flow of time, the people of Sidonia dwindled, until there were none left but atop the walls. The king and the anointed priest, who still burns on those forgotten streets.
That was good.
Damn. So much jam.
Good. So much jam.
A lot of jam.
Look at all these red brick roads.
But hey, you know, if you want to make a god, you need a lot of jam.
That's true. There's nothing a god loves more than a good strawberry peanut butter sandwich. Jam. Jam strawberry.
Or cherry.
I forgot that. Hey.
Is it my turn?
Yes, I believe it is your turn if you are ready.
I sure am. So, for the most part, I've been trying to pick, like, my little theme that I try and do every year is stories from other countries, if I can. Normally it's China. And of course, I do have a China story today. But I also found some Korean ones for fun this time.
Ooh.
So, we'll be trying out some different places. But for today, we're going to be visiting the hot springs for the hot spring ghost. And before I tell you the spooky story, I want to tell you guys a little story. So I studied abroad in China for a little while, and I did get to go to a hot spring once, and it is the only time in my entire life I've had the luxury of trying a hot spring egg. It is delicious. It is one of the most top 5 things I've ever eaten in my life, and I'll probably never eat it again. So if you ever get the opportunity to eat a hot spring egg,
Eat that egg.
hell yeah. Anyway,
Okay.
there's a reason I told you the story. Let's go. So this is the hot spring ghost. When he was a young man, Yongli moved to Wenchuan for university. It was a hot spring town, right outside of Wuhan, in the mountains about 100 miles from where he grew up. At night, the people of this town gathered in the caverns to enjoy the bubbling thermal water. It was the kind of water that could heal aches and ailments, and according to some old ladies, who've lived in the town for ages. Its mineral properties could even cure grief. Ooh, I want to go.
Let me go.
Sounds fantastic.
I'm starting to understand why I'm loving baths in my old age.
They're so soothing.
Right? And warm, and sometimes they do really help with those aches and pains. In the old days, before the wars, people traveled from far-flung cities like Beijing or Shanghai just to touch the waters or taste the town's famous sulfur eggs. One could cook an egg in this thermal hot spring bath, and it would taste better than the salted duck eggs from the best restaurants in the city. One night, early in his time there, Yongli decided to see for himself what the fuss was all about. It was late summer, when all the college students were moving in. He'd arrived early and settled into his dormitory already, so he had time on his hands. He took the bus up a winding mountain road towards the main hot springs drag. In those days, the buses rattled non-stop, and he gripped onto the railing of his seat. Oh no, public transportation, spooky! When he arrived, he noticed that there were no signs. He followed the sound of people chatting and came upon a single pavilion with a bell, which led to a courtyard. He entered the men's bathing quarters and scrubbed himself with soap until he was clean and raw. Yummy. He chose the compound that had the least people. There were several pools to choose from, all of which were surrounded by rocks and miniature shrines made of stone. He noticed that some of them had incense in them, the embers still burning red like the eyes of white rabbits. My friends are always watching you. Just like Zayden in your stream chat. He's always there.
True. Lurking.
Always watching.
It's
lurking.
Always watching, making sure I'm in line.
I'm gonna take a sip of my Capri Sun. How spooky.
What kind of flavor we partaking in?
Pacific Cooler.
Classic.
You know, reading stories is really fun, but it does a number on your throat.
Mm-hmm.
Especially this time of year. The night was shaping up to be one of those chilly mountain evenings, and the cicadas were especially loud, screaming through all of Yongli's thoughts. He shivered uneasily, throwing his towel over his front side. He couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching him, maybe from afar. But the steam was too hot and invigorating to resist, and when he stepped into the water, he immediately sighed, draping the towel over his forehead and closing his eyes. It was heaven. I want to go. I want to go to the haunted hot spring. The water smelled fragrant. The water smelled fragrant, like wet tea leaves. The good kind, not the ordinary plants he had tended to. The crude bricks of black herbal tea back at the labor camp. Before he came to Wenchuan, he had labored in the tea fields in an even more remote mountain. He was sent there when he was only 15, and until that very week, he had tended and culled those leaves from sunup to sundown. What back-breaking toil it all was. What little he had to eat. He studied his hands. The backs of them several shades darker, but the skin of his palms was still bright and torn with pink calluses. He hadn't really gotten the chance to survey his own body since leaving home, but now he was starting to notice all the blisters, all the marks the earth had left on him. Yongli began to smile, thinking how a year ago he never would have practiced this degree of relaxation, this fragrant pampering. Soon he would begin his studies, and that was also a miracle. It was 1978, and he was a part of the first small group of students to be admitted into the universities, which had reopened that year after shutting down for over a decade. Wild time to be alive.
Mm-hmm.
College entrance exams were discontinued in 1966, when he was only 6 years old. Last year, he'd been one of the first in his camp to sign up for the exams. The odds were impressively slim. Every night he studied, memorizing formulas and dates feverishly beneath a single flickering light bulb, by the light of the moths that fluttered around in their paper wings. During the day, he almost fainted from lack of sleep. Only 5% were admitted out of millions of hopefuls. And now in this hot spring, it was unbearable to Yongli how wonderful this feeling was compared to what he'd always known. It felt as if he'd been deprived so long of this existence that he didn't know how to enjoy it. It was then, in his contemplative state, that he saw her, a girl on the side of the rocks leaning against a sharp rock in the other pool. She was in profile, covered by the steam. He'd seen her somewhere. Perhaps in the dormitories? Her hair was wet and bunched up in a towel, but a stray strand made a question mark on the back of her neck. She peered over her shoulder. She was looking at him. And Yongli, being a teenager, woo!
Peter.
Reading is so hard, y'all. And Yongli, being a teenager, flushed and ducked back into the pool, scandalous and naked girl. The temperature of the water felt much hotter than it was before, scalding in fact, and he yelped in pain. His calves were red and looked like meat. Then the girl called out to be careful. That pool can get really hot. Without turning back, he gathered himself. He didn't dare speak to her in such an undressed state. But she pressed on, inviting him to join her pool. He thought it was shameless, as she was wearing nothing, but eventually, he found the other pool. He found his way to the other pool. All right.
Coward.
The temperature was perfect, and he felt his muscles relax again as he dipped into the water, facing the other side of the hill so not to scandalize the girl, who didn't seem to care in the slightest. The girl was maybe 2 or 3 years older than him, but nevertheless, she could well be a classmate of his. Stealing quick glances at her, he realized that he'd never seen her before. She was the kind of beautiful that seemed unreal, especially through the spumes? What are spumes? Is that like the soft wafting of the heat of the air?
I don't know. I'm not familiar with that word.
Me either. To his bewilderment, she held out both her hands and appeared to offer something. It was an egg. By the way, sidetracking, Angel's Egg is going to be in theaters, I think in November sometime. It's a really cool, spooky anime movie. So,
Ooh, okay.
anyway, here's me offering you 2 eggs. Can I offer you an egg in this trying time?
Yes, please do so.
Hell yeah. I'm gonna go see it, and I don't leave my house for anything. Anyway, to his bewilderment, she held out both her hands and appeared to offer something. It was an egg, black spotted and slightly crackled, which she claims was boiled with a sulfuric hot spring. He recognized it was the famous Wenchuan egg. At first, Yongli hesitated, for he couldn't conceive of so many sensations all at once. But she dropped the egg in his palms and he held it gingerly, realizing in the past 3 years, he'd never once eaten an egg. Meals at the labor camp always consisted of rice gruel and cabbage, sometimes turnips, and maybe once a year a spoonful of ground pork. The last egg he remembered eating was during the spring festival 5 years ago, when his mother brought home a carton of century eggs. He remembered savoring the dark, gelatinous form of the egg. So a delicious egg, the salty, buttery yolk, the color of the charcoal. Hungry now beyond reason, he decided that he was willing to be poisoned by this strange girl. He peeled off the eggshell, but it broke into tiny shards in his fingers, making a mess all over the mud and stone he was resting against. Under the shell, the spring-boiled egg glowed like a luminous orb with the aroma of the hot spring waters. And as he tasted it, he shuddered with glee. The flavor was unlike anything Yongli had ever tasted. Warm and earthy, a twinge of salt and sulfur, the slight smokiness of tannins and minerals he couldn't name. He'd focused so much on the egg that as he looked up, the girl was gone. He searched around the hot spring, but the only people there were old men from the community bathing themselves. He then decided to wait at the hot spring until she returned, in case she went back to the restroom or the women's quarters. He waited until past midnight, but she never came back. The next day, he returned to the spring to see if she would show up, but she didn't. He went every day until school started, but she never appeared. He did notice, however, when he peered down at his hands, that all of his blisters, all of the calluses accumulated over years of working the fields were missing. His hands were smooth again. The end.
Ooh.
I like that.
The egg was delivered. No more was needed.
It was a wholesome ghost. That's the
It was.
twist.
Oh my gosh.
Look at you, hard-working boy. Here's an egg.
You worked hard. Here's an egg. But not all ghosts are mean. Sometimes they
That's
go
true.
Once on the best, you know? And
And
it's
if
still
you're-
horror.
And if you ever find yourself in a hot springs town and they offer hot springs eggs, you should eat them. That's the moral of the story.
Yup.
You should.
Yup. Don't question it. Just eat egg.
No question. Take
Just
the
eat egg. Everybody needs the protein.
Mhm,
Stay alive,
mhm.
people.
Get protein. A little bit of a background, real quick. A little bit of a lore. So, a long time ago, and I couldn't find this, but I was thinking about bringing it here. But it was a really well-written horror story that you slowly realize through the story that it's just a horror retelling of that Simpsons meme about the guy going to eat at the Principal Skinner's house. Forget what it's called,
Mm.
but I couldn't find it, so it's not here. But just thought I'd let everyone know.
All right.
All right, but this next story, is called Toilet.
You would.
Where this is going.
There's a random giggle in the woods behind me. Ignore it.
Pitch, stream, pitch.
It's just the Hinkarus in the forest giggling. Alright. But this story is called Toilet. I was working as a late night security guard for a large building. I was new, so I was paired up with a colleague. It was an extremely easy job. All I had to do was follow a particular route with a torch in hand. Just when I was starting to think that this would be an easy job with nothing much happening, we approached the toilet at the end of the 3rd floor. And as we did, my colleague was like, "I need to go to the toilet." And I was only new and had no reason to refuse, so I figured I'd go as well, and we went in together. As friends do. It was nondescript. A regular, clean toilet with 4 urinals and 2 stalls. My colleague apparently needed to go number 2, so he went straight towards one of the stalls. Even though I don't know if it was out of habit or not, but I found it a little strange that he knocked first. And of course, there was no answer from the other side, and so he grabbed the doorknob, turned the knob, but perhaps someone really was inside or the door is broken. But either way, the result was the same. My colleague gave up going into that stall and went to the next stall over. I'd finished doing my business, but the door that wouldn't open intrigued me, so I went over to the door, and when I looked at the knob, I could see the red paint signifying that it was locked from the inside. Was someone in there? Did they have a heart attack or pass out while doing their business? Or perhaps a drunk had fallen asleep in there. Hoping it was the latter, I put my ear against the door. I couldn't hear any snoring. I couldn't hear anything but the awful sound coming from the stall next door. If it were the former, it would be terrible, so I started thinking about what to do. In the end, I decided to have a look over the top of the door. And I took a bucket out of the cleaning cupboard and climbed up onto it, putting my foot on the doorknob. I lifted myself up and put my hands on the top of the door, and I looked inside. There was a dead body. What appeared to be a middle-aged businessman. Taking a closer look, there were small flies around him. His necktie was wrapped around his neck. But strangely, the dead body didn't have a smell to it. Normally, in this situation, I think calling the police would be your main priority. I don't know what I was thinking, but I felt like I needed to alert my other colleagues. So I left this one still in the next stall and headed for the guard room. I didn't rush. I was decidedly calm. But if you really think about it, other than myself and the colleagues still in the toilet, there was no one else in the building. And of course, there wasn't anybody in the guard room either. I figure I may as well go back and head for the 3rd floor. But there was no toilet there. No matter how much I looked, there was no toilet. Maybe I'd gotten the place wrong. Perhaps I'd mistaken the floor, so I searched all the toilets, but that toilet was nowhere to be found. My memory of the events in there, a few days later, no matter how much I tried, I couldn't remember the face of the colleague in the toilet stall at all. I couldn't remember the face of the dead body either. I couldn't remember where that building was. I couldn't remember how I got home from that building after that, or even the circumstances leading up to the job. Why didn't I call the police? Why did I go to the guard room even though no one was there? Did I ever really have that job? Was I really a security guard? I started wondering about these things recently. There were so many contradictory, doubtful, suspicious points. I thought it had to have been a dream. Only the scene remained clearly in my head. There was one more strange thing. While I'm sitting here watching TV, telling the story, I'm having this really strong sense of deja vu. The end.
Ooh.
Everything about this guy's life is fake.
Oh no!
So, moral of the story is don't look in a stall, you'll get implicated.
I mean, noted, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
It's rude and you'll be implicated. Don't do
All right, got it.
it.
Okay, their business is their business.
Business is their business, no matter what it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's not my business.
Once I finish my business, I'm out of there.
That's true.
All right, very nice.
Thank you.
All right, for the next story I have, it is simply called Skeleton on the Porch.
Oh, that sounds cute, potentially.
I think it has generally a happy ending, though
I guess we'll see. Ooh.
maybe a bit spine-chilling nonetheless. Tommy Morgan did not have the best life. Coming from a broken home, the young 11-year-old only experienced the worst. His father would return home drunken like a skunk, get into fights with his mother over money and how he was the bread maker. He could do with his earnings what he saw fit. Tommy's mother would do the chores around the house, her eyes red from sobbing. Tommy himself would receive whippings by his father for the slightest of offenses. It always came with the hollow assurance that it would build character. There were many things that the boy despised, his father being number one on the list. A day never went by which he dreamed of getting revenge on him. But, alas, it was all a fantasy. For his father was big and stout. And as far as Tommy was concerned, he was an unconquerable Goliath to his David. Thoughts of running away crossed his mind, but he did not have the heart to abandon his mother to this brute. He thought that he would never be able to get rid of him. At least, until that day. One of the few joys Tommy had in his life was Halloween. On that holiday, he could discard his miserable life and become anyone he wanted to be. The candy and decorations were also a plus. His father, despite everything else, would at the very least spruce up the house for All Hallows Eve. With a spider made of old rags, papier-mâché ghost. And on that particular day, he brought home a skeleton. A skeleton that was roughly his size, being 6'5" in height. It was dry and had some visible cracks around the ribs and the spine. It was missing a few of its teeth in the upper part of his jaw and in the back, likely from the years of wear and tear. The hollow eye sockets were jet black and devoid of all life. Bones, yellow with age, made a slight thump sound against the wall anytime Tommy's dad would swing the ancient artifact back and forth. It looks absolutely fragile in his colossal hands. He explained that he got the decoration from an old antique store, bragging about how much he swindled the store owner to get the skeleton cheap. He placed the skeleton on the bench of the porch and returned inside without much thought. Resuming his drinking, once more he got into a fight with Tommy's mother, this time over her wanting new curtains. Tommy left the house and sat on the bench with the skeleton. He vented his complaints to the decorative piece, not thinking much about whether he would be heard, but nevertheless, it felt nice talking to someone. From there on out, Tommy found himself loving that skeleton. Each day, he would talk to it and take care of it. Anytime leaves would fall on it, Tommy would blow them off with a leaf blower. When it rained, Tommy would cover the skeleton with rags. And for a second, he could have sworn that the skeleton was receptive to these acts of kindness. During one instance, when he was gently wiping the skeleton's arm, Tommy heard whistling. From the direction he was looking, it appeared that the teeth were clattering. However, Tommy just talked this up as the wind blowing through the skeleton's mouth. Beyond his days spent with the Halloween decoration, Tommy's life continued as normal. His parents would argue over the tiniest offenses, his mother would resume doing chores around the house with tear-streaked eyes, and Tommy himself would continue to receive beatings that his father thinly veiled as discipline. During dinner, Tommy accidentally dropped a glass, causing it to fall on the floor and break into a million pieces. As his father was beating him, there was a sudden thumping coming from the porch. Alarmed, he paused to listen to the sudden noise. Whatever was out there paced back and forth on the porch, stomping as hard as its foot would allow. With bated breath, Tommy's father approached the door and opened it, only to see the skeleton in its sitting position. Once more, it was attributed to be the wind. For the next few days, the thumping would continue, though. The repetition ate away at Tommy's father, spurring him to leave home and remain out for long hours. In his dreams, he was tormented by the skeleton. He would find himself in bed, alone, and the skeleton would appear at the foot of his bed, sliding over his body, just coming short of his neck. His father would wake with a jolt and refuse to sleep the rest of the night. However, Tommy's dreams were starkly different. He would receive sweets and other confections, and his father would be far away. The skeleton would stand by him, looking at him in the distance. Eventually, Tommy's dad couldn't take it any further, and during a stormy night, he gathered the skeleton and tossed it into the back of his truck with little hesitation. Where Tommy was awakened from his deep slumber only to see the skeleton that he had cherished so being driven away. He ran to the door, but the truck bolted to life and bucked its way off the driveway.
No!
The poor lad. Heartbroken, Tommy returned to his bedroom, and he cried himself to sleep. The next day, upon his father's return, he did so with the skeleton. Surprised at first, Tommy was grateful that his friend was back. Even more bizarre, his father was kinder. Tommy once again accidentally broke a dish, but instead of whipping, he was instead given a stern but fair warning about how he could have hurt himself. There were no more arguments over money, which meant his mother now had peace. Their marriage also improved, and the two seemed more in love with each other than all the other years of their lives. However, Tommy couldn't help but notice that his father was acting a tad strange. He moved around as if he was a stranger in his own skin, legs wobbling, knees buckling from the smallest of movements. Sometimes, the skin around his face would slide just a touch, forcing him to push it up with his spare hand. His jaw would hang agape as he ate, which means he would have to shovel the food into his mouth. Tommy learned the truth on Halloween. When he stared at the skeleton on the bench, there were no longer cracks in the ribs. In fact, instead of being ancient, it appeared fresh, and dare say, even more lifelike than before. He had a full set of teeth as well. Shocked, Tommy turned to look at his father, who had been staring at him for what seemed like an eternity, before giving a wink. The end.
Like Skeleton Dad. Like Skeleton Dad. When the last dad fumbled, he was the dad that stepped up. That was a good one.
Indeed.
Yeah, I like that one.
That was
It had a nice ending, but still kind of like, ugh, if you think about it.
There's a few stories today that's been kind of like that. I think all of us, like, kind of, without talking to each other collectively, were like, let's find some horror that's, like, subtle. It's subtly scary, if you think about it.
I mean, my next one's pretty on the. I don't know. There was a lot of jam in the first one as well. Like,
Yeah, I kind
That was
of,
very
I flip-flopped
solid.
back and forth.
Mine had a toilet in it.
I gotta keep you on your toes, you know?
yeah.
With
We've got a lot of varying tones this evening. You guys want to hear about the awful little goblin?
Of course.
I can't believe you're talking about me during this right
I knew you were gonna make that joke as soon as I saw the title.
now. I've been holding it back.
I don't believe that. You weren't holding it at all. You were waiting. You were biding your time.
When you said that was going to be your story and stream, I had to like the Chudy BO. My hand is shaking. The darkness in my hand. The darkness in my hand. It wishes to be unleashed.
Hell yeah.
Anywho, I want to tell you guys a little bit about this here awful little goblin.
Let's
There
hear
was
it.
once an occasion for celebration in the home of a nobleman of Seoul, whereupon a feast to which were invited all the family, friends, and a great banquet was prepared. There was a great crowd of men and even more women. In front of the women's quarters, there suddenly appeared an uncombed, ugly-looking boy about 15 years of age. This can't be you. You're too old to be this goblin.
That's true. I'm very old.
It's true. Ancient, in fact. The host and guests thinking him a homeless person who had come into the train of some visitor did not seem specifically concerned by him, but one of the women who was a guest, seeing him in her inner quarters, sent a servant to reprimand him and take him out. The boy, however, refused to move. So the servant said to him, "Who are you anyway? And with whom did you come? That you enter the women's quarters and even when told to go, do not leave?" The boy, however, stood stock still, just as he had been, with no word of reply. The company looked at him in doubt and began to ask one another who he had come with, who was he with, and who had he come with. Again, they had the servants make inquiries, but still nobody could find out, and there was no reply from the silent, still little boy. The women then grew very angry and ordered him to be thrown out. Several women took hold of him and tried to pull him, but he was like a fixed rock, fast in the earth, absolutely immovable. In a helpless rage, they informed the men. The men, hearing this, sent several strong servants who took hold all at once, but he did not budge a hair. And they asked again, "Who are you anyway?" But he gave no reply. The crowd, then enraged, sent 10 strong men with ropes to bind him, but like a giant mountain he remained fast, so that they recognized that he could not be moved by man's power. One guest remarked, "But he too is human. Why can't he be moved?" Then they sent 5 or 6 giant fellows with clubs to smash him to pieces. And they laid on with all their might. It looked as though he'd be crushed like an eggshell. Oh, I have a theme this evening. While the sound of their pounding was like reverberating thunder. But just as before, not a hair did he turn, not a wink did he give. Then the crowd began to fear, saying, "This is not a man, this is a god." So they entered the courtyard, one and all, and began to bow before him, joining their hands and supplicating earnestly. They kept this up for a long time. At last the boy gave a sarcastic smile, turned around and went out of the gate, disappearing into the fog. The company, frightened out of their wits, called off the feast. From that day on, the people of the house were taken ill, including hosts and guests. Those who scolded him, those who tied him with ropes, those who pounded him all died within a few days. Other members of the company, too, contracted typhus and the like, and also died. It was commonly held that the boy may have been a Tuuk spirit, but we can't say for sure. The end.
I love him.
Ooh.
He just walked in, stood there, judged humanity, left.
Origin story.
You know, you do what you come to do, and then you get the fuck out.
Yeah.
It's...
I like him.
Hey.
It reminds me of this that old Arthurian story about the Green Man. Just kind of comes in and goes, "Who wants to cut my head off?"
Oh.
And then I was like, "I'll do it," and then he does it, and then he picks up his head and goes, "Okay, I'll cut your head off in like a year." The guy's like, "Oh, I can't walk away with my head if mine gets cut off."
Ugh.
And then I recommend anybody read the story. It has laughs and humanity shared, and he cucks him at one point. Like, it's a very good story.
I see. So, what's your next story?
Kevin?
Oh, I thought you were next.
I thought May just went.
I thought, I thought, oh, I'm
Just
first.
went, you're
Yeah.
next, yeah.
I just sat here like politely and just laughed. Like,
Yeah. I said, "What's your next story?" And then you laughed and went silent.
That's why I thought you were talking to the
Awkward silence is his next story. Ah!
I just stare at the, just put my face right in the screen. I stare at chat. It is horrifying if you think about it, eye contact. All right. This next one I chose because it kind of resembles a little bit of story in the zeitgeist right now with Silent Hill F on the horizon. This kind of deals with very similar themes. It's called The Shrine, the Sacred Tree, and the Kitsune, which most people know this world weaves. It means fox spirit. Alright. Let's see. Well, it doesn't mean fox spirit, but usually it's a anyway. Alright, about 10 years ago, I lived in a place that was so countryside, we were surrounded by nothing but mountains. Near the top of the mountain, we had a small rice field. We weren't farmers or anything, it was just a tiny field that made enough to feed ourselves, really. It was located in a basin. However, when you entered the side road, it led to the middle of the forest and also a mountain trail, or perhaps an animal trail. Of course, there was no convenience stores, and as for playgrounds, there was only the temple grounds. And forest, woods, near the shrine, those were our play places. At the time, I believed in ghosts and other such unscientific things, but I'd never once seen or felt any. I had zero ghost sense, so to speak. There was a graveyard, not even 100 meters from our house. When I was younger, my little brothers and I used to play there like it was a playground, playing hide and seek and so on. And I thought the people there had already passed on to heaven, so it's not like they would appear or anything. So we often went to play at the shrine as well. While my brothers and I were returning from elementary school, one day, we went to play in the forest nearby, and that's when it happened. There was an animal trail we followed that you could barely even call a path. There were a lot of sacred trees, however, so we used those as landmarks as we walked. My two younger brothers and I played tag and hide and seek, and when it was my turn to be Oni for hide and seek game, I slowly counted to 10. As I did, all the sounds I'd heard up until then, the wind through the leaves, cries of birds, voices of insects, all suddenly stopped, just like that. Something strange, I thought, and I called out to my brothers so I could find them. It was hide and seek, so even if I called out their names, it's not like they would answer. With a strange silence, I became more and more worried. I went and searched all the places my brother would usually hide, and despite the fact I could usually find them pretty easily, they were nowhere to be found. Up until that point, there had never been a time where any of us hadn't found each other. At last, I gave up and yelled, "I don't know where you are. Give me a hint." And whenever we couldn't find each other, we would clap to give a hint as to our general whereabouts. It was kind of a sign amongst us siblings. However, there was still no response. I thought my little brothers were having some fun at my expense, and it was already evening, so I yelled out, "If you don't come out now, I'm going home." My brothers were very close to me, so it was unthinkable that they would let me go home without them. I thought it might get them to come out, but again, there was nothing but silence. Did the two of them go back home without me? Under normal circumstances, they would never go home without me, but in the strange silence where I couldn't hear anything but the sounds I made myself, I became worried and started to think they might have. Well, then I'll just go home too, I thought, and I started walking back. I soon became aware, however, that something wasn't right. I mentioned there were sacred trees that we used as landmarks, right? No matter how much I walked, the same sacred trees kept appearing in front of me. Am I walking in circles? I thought. I picked up a rock and started marking all the trees that weren't sacred as I walked, but once again I kept seeing the same trees. Moreover, the marks I carved in the trees had disappeared. Quite a bit of time had passed, and it wouldn't be strange for it to be dark, but dusk seemed to go on forever. I got scared. Thinking it would be safe near the sacred trees, I spent a fairly long time just standing and sitting at the base of them. I still couldn't hear any noise other than the ones that I made myself, and there wasn't a single bug to be found, not even a single ant. I was so scared I just started crying when something suddenly dropped on the opposite side of the sacred tree I was sitting under. I was so surprised at this sudden sound that wasn't my sounds. I remember making a small choking sound. The sacred tree was so big that it would take 3 adults spreading their arms around it to reach the other side, so even as I turned around, I couldn't see anything. I nervously moved around to the other side of the tree, and a yellowish, whitish, cream-colored kitsune was there, standing right at me. I've been seeing foxes around here my entire life, and I've seen plenty of wild foxes before, but this kitsune was a little larger than most of them. I was still only little myself, so I was afraid of meeting wild animals in the forest with fangs. While looking it in the eyes, I slowly backed away. We lived in an area where bears often appeared, so both from home and school I had been taught to look the animal in the eyes as you put some distance between yourself and it. I couldn't show it my back as I ran away. Even though I was only a young kid at the time, I think I did really well. Well enough that if I could, I would praise my younger self on a job well done. However, the kitsune never showed any signs that it would attack. It began walking around the sacred tree with light feet. I didn't know what was happening, so I just watched it, and after it circled a few more times, it stopped and began walking down the animal path I followed. Relieved, the kitsune walked until a certain distance away and then stopped to look back at me. It was exactly the same thing my pet dog would do when it wanted me to follow, so I couldn't help but draw closer to it. As I got closer, it began walking again, and as it did, it would look back at me. It was as though it was telling me to follow it, even though I had lost my bearings as I followed the kitsune. We once again closed in on the sacred trees, and everything around me suddenly got dark. I was surprised, but then I noticed we were on the shrine grounds and was relieved. At the same time, my brothers had apparently gone to let our mother know I was missing when I heard, them call my name. My mother ran up and hugged me. I knew she'd been searching for me, and she was so scared she refused to let me go, and I cried like a baby. The kitsune I followed suddenly disappeared without me even noticing. The next morning, I heard from the shrine priest's son that 5 foxes were found dead with their necks ripped open around one of the sacred trees. I wondered if perhaps I'd been bewitched by those 5 foxes that the kitsune had saved me from. Just last week, I returned home for spring holidays, and in the woods near our house, I saw the kitsune look exactly like the one from that time. I remembered what happened, and I felt like I needed to tell someone about it. At the time, I only intended to tell my mother about it, but I wasn't very good at expressing myself, so she didn't really understand me. However, the events remain clear in my memory, so I thought I'd take the chance to write them down now. I wanted to leave behind what happened to me somewhere for my own satisfaction. Sorry to use up so much space. Thank you to everyone who read my story. The end. That was apparently a true story that happened.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Spooky.
Yeah. They say that kids get spirited away by foxes to be ate, and instead the foxes got aided by the big fox. He said, "Y'all calm the fuck down." Well, no, he ate him. He didn't say anything. I assume, unless it's like a Terminator fox, where it has to say a quip.
The Terminator.
You leave that boy alone.
This is the last round of stories, right?
Yes.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah. I have one final story. One second. Where is it?
Excited.
This? Ah, here we go.
Boxing through our memories looking for the story in our mind palaces.
Can you hear that? I think chat can hear it. I don't know if you guys can hear it.
I
can
can't
hear
hear
a
a
little
thing.
Okay. You hear that?
There we go.
That I could hear.
Beautiful.
Okay. Excellent. I'm gonna need it.
Ooh.
The final tale that I tell
Fancy.
is probably my spookiest, as it comes from a place of physical fear. Very real one that, I do apologize in advance, may hit you a bit more than others may.
Oh, yippee! I can't wait! Yay! I love
Let's
targeted
traumatize the
media. Traumatize the bunny. Do it.
But as I said, this is I think a very real fear that most people have at some point in their lives. So, without further ado, as the story goes, I just moved into my first apartment. It was a small, one-room, real shit heap of a place. When you're single and living alone, you take what you can get. This place, I'm talking like roaches, mice. Any big city apartment owner, or more likely renter, will tell you what it's like. But I loved it. Or, I loved what it meant. The freedom, I suppose. The freedom of being alone. Only, I wasn't alone. Not truly. I heard it after the first night. In the morning, while I was brushing my teeth. get ready for work. To turn off the water, hello? Knock on the wall. At first I thought it were mice. Constantly scratching. Tiny mouths eating something wet, once alive. I felt assured that was the case. That night, as I came home from work, because it had moved. I was in the kitchen, making dinner, when I heard it again. Scratching. What the hell? Tap on the walls, here and there. What the hell are you? Skate! Get out! Go! Pause. Shut the hell up in there! My neighbor rang from beyond the wall. That's when I realized it must be coming from my neighbor's apartment. So I tried to ignore it. We've all had animals, cats and the like, pull at the wires, and I thought, some kitten must be just having a field day while my neighbor's out. Pulling at the wires that run in the walls, making them creak and scratch throughout. It was the only explanation, as I began to hear the scratching other places in the apartment. Annoying as it was, I was constant to go about ignoring it, embracing the frustrations of a new renter. But then the headaches started. They came on slowly at first, waking up with migraines that felt like I couldn't hear the world, let alone focus on getting out of bed. These ear-splitting shoots of pain that would just wreck me. They would carry me through the day even. Coming home to more and more, it was like taking acetaminophen. Oh, that's a word. Acetaminophen. Daily, and I felt it. Acetaminophen? I have no idea what that is, actually.
I had to use it all the time. Not use it, but I worked at a health place. It was a weird one.
Ah, okay. It felt like something was lingering on me. Something sinister. Eventually, I asked the landlord, "Can we not see someone about a gas leak?" Landlord said, "It's a gas leak. Others would complain." I know. I'm just asking. It's been a week now, and I can barely... No one else complains. No one else. Okay, fine. Jesus. A neighbor who must have overheard me pulled me aside that night and told me that the previous tenant had died. They found him laying on the bed, laying in a pool of blood next to his pillow. The police said it wasn't foul play, but didn't disclose the cause, and no one knew his family. Everyone just accepted that it was normal. It didn't feel normal. That night I heard it. The scratching. At first from the ceiling. No, shut up. I tossed and I turned. My head pounded. Nothing felt right. Nothing felt normal. The scratching was everywhere. And then as I lay in my bed, in my mattress, something plucking at the threads, a deep tearing like strips of flesh from a rodent being peeled off one by one. Somehow, I managed to fall asleep that night. The next day, I woke up to find blood on my pillow. I didn't sleep in my apartment again that night, or the next, but I couldn't shake the feeling. It wasn't a gas leak or mold. My friend gave me their couch to sleep on, and every morning, woke up feeling worse. Each morning, blood dotting the pillow. I made an appointment with my doctor after the first morning. 3 days of agony later. Finally got to see him. "And you hear this scratching in the walls everywhere?" he asked. "Yes, but mainly my apartment." "Have you been sleeping?" he asked. "And yes, I told you that." I know. Let me ask you the questions." "Yeah?" "When you hear this, is it always on one side?" "How do you mean?" I asked. "Left or right of the wall? Left, mainly. And your pain? Stronger on the left? Somewhat? Okay, I check your ear. My ear? From my left ear, the doctor pulled a burrowed insect. It had crawled in there the night I first arrived and chewed away at my inner ear. The doctor said he'd never seen an insect so deep, so hungry. And to this day, every time I hear something from my left and feel its tiny mandibles gnawing, chewing, feasting their way from inside my ear canal. And sometimes, late at night, and I'm lying in the silence of my room, I hear something stir. I wonder. Didn't lay eggs. The end.
How beautiful childbirth is.
I mean, as horrifying as that is aside, that was a really nice sound. How are you creating it? You don't have to tell me now. I want to learn your trick, though. Give it to me.
I have a
The
comb.
ASMR artist needs to know.
I have a comb. It's just a comb.
Oh, that's a nice sound.
It is.
I had no idea where it was going. Of course, it had to be bugs. It's always bugs.
Yep. I knew. I was like, do I tell this one? I know May doesn't like the bugs, but then I was like, but it is kind of a universal fear. Not gonna lie,
It's true.
I was terrified to have bugs crawling in my ears as a child. I was one of my biggest fears.
I still am. I'm scared of like a spider crawling into my mouth while I'm sleeping too.
After something that happened to my uncle, I've just been horrified to have a bug in my ear. He had one get up in there, and I guess it ate his earwax until it got too big to get out. The doctor had to get it out.
If they don't tell me that, don't tell me that.
So, for my last story of the night.
Yes, please, May, send us off.
I brought too many, so I'm gonna actually let you guys pick which one, and then the next one will be my first one next year.
Oh, perfect. Have a head start.
So shall we do the old man who became a fish, or the wildcat woman?
Ooh, a cat or a fish?
Yes.
I feel like we should go with the fish.
The fish.
A
Let's do
fish.
fish. All right, it's your future.
Oh boy.
Our feature.
All right, the old man who became a fish. Some years ago, a noted official became the magistrate of the Kosong County. On a certain day, a guest called on him to pay his respects. And when noon came, the magistrate had a table of food prepared for him, on which was a dish of skate soup. Skate being a kind of fish. I learned this from the story.
Yes.
When the guest saw the soup, he twisted his features and refused it, saying, "Today I am fasting from meat, and so beg to be excused." His face grew very pale, and tears flowed from his eyes. The magistrate thought this behavior was strange, and asked him 2 or 3 times the meaning of it. When he could no longer withhold a reply, he went into all the particulars and told him the story. "Your humble servant," he said, "has in his life met with much unheard of and unhappy experiences, which he's never told to a living soul, but now that your excellency asks it of me, I cannot refrain from telling. Your servant's father was a very old man, nearly 100, when one day he was taken down with a high fever, in which his body was like a fiery furnace." I love Heike's story. Seeing the danger he was in, his children gathered, all around weeping, thinking that the time of his departure had surely come. But he lived, and a few days later, he said to us, "I'm burdened with so great a heat in this sickness that I am not able to endure it any longer. I'd like to go to the bank of the river that runs before the house and see the water flowing by, and be refreshed by it. Don't disobey me now, but carry me out once more to the water's edge." We argued with him and begged him not to do so, but he grew very angry and said, "If you do not do as I command, you will be the death of me." And so, seeing that there was no help for it, we bore him out and placed him at the bank of the river. Upon seeing the water, he seemed greatly delighted and said, "The clear flowing water, I think it's curing my sickness." A moment later, he said further, "I'd like some quiet time, alone. Can I be rid of you all for a little while? Go away. Go into the woods and wait until I tell you to come back." We again argued with him over this, but he grew furiously angry, and we were helpless to say no. We feared that if we insisted, his sickness would grow worse, and so we yielded to his demands. We went a short distance away, and then turned to look, when suddenly the old father was gone from the place where he had been seated. We hurried back to see what happened. My father had taken off his clothes and plunged into the water, which was already muddied. His body was already half metamorphosized into a skate. We saw its transformation in terror and did not dare to go near him, when all at once it became changed into a great flat fish that swam and plunged and disported itself into the water with intense delight. He looked back at us as though he could hardly bear to go, but a moment later he was off, entering the deep sea, and we never saw him again. On the edge of the stream where he had changed form, we found his fingernails and a singular tooth. These we buried, and today, as a family, we all abstain from skatefish. And when we see the neighbors frying or eating it, we're overcome with disgust and horror. The end.
Oof.
Ooh.
Ugh. And I
Think
just
about
got
that
into
next
eating
time
fish.
you eat some sushi, you know?
Mm.
I ate
What
sushi
about
for the first time a
somebody's
few years ago.
dad?
Oh God, no!
It's not my fault that somebody's dad tastes great. I'm sorry.
Cafe,
I'm
you
sorry,
monster!
could you come again? Can you come again? Say that sentence again, a little louder for the people in the back.
Sorry,
Here, let me turn you up.
It's pay-per-view now. 587 gift subs. I'll say it again.
I don't have that many.
That's a bit much, my friend.
Alright. That's
Price
your
is too
future.
steep.
I'll save the wild cat woman for next year.
Hell
Save
yeah.
My next one for next year too.
Sounds like a plan.
I'll save it in this Google Doc that I hope I remember in a year.
I'll remind you.
The horror dog.
Thank you so much.
We'll be
we
searching.
all have one collective brain cell here tonight. Its name is Aiden Rixio.
And once again, in 1 year's time, the fire will hunger once more, and we will be here to appease it. Maybe with some fresh faces. We'll see.
Hey.
We'll maybe harass some people. We can throw them in the fire.
Exactly.
Find a few more sacrifices, you know?
Just assume if anybody doesn't show up from the year prior, they are in the fire.
We gotta go find like
didn't make the
specifically a
cut.
book VTuber so they can sweat awkwardly in the background wondering if we're gonna sacrifice them the entire time.
Ooh. I do know one, but she's UK time. Damn it.
Oh, I could stay up late for a bit.
That's way too late for them. We're gonna be doing it at this time. Oh goodness. But in any case, thank you both for joining me once again this year to tell some spooky stories around my eerie green campfire.
Thank you for having us. It's always an honor. I'll see you next time.
Yeah. Take care, you two. Don't get lost in the woods.
Bye-bye. I'm gonna get lost in the woods. Bye-bye.
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 All right. That was, once again, the lovely Pion Pion Dice, aka May, and Cafe. Do a quick little Should have set this up ahead of time, but I forgot. Things happened. Please go follow these two lovely individuals. They both stream. The woods are dark, the worms are back. Gabe, I said don't get lost in the woods. That's the one thing I said not to do. We're not even that far away from the theater. It's like right over there. We're basically in its backyard. We haven't gone that far. Hey, Cass, welcome in. Appreciate you for lurking. We're actually just about to end. We were just wrapping up. Let's head back inside. Goldie, let's chat. Hello, everybody. Oh, my God! All the things we're playing all at one time. Yes. Spooky Scary Story Night generally is a little shorter of a stream, I realize, but you know, we can't be out all night entertaining the ghosts. They gotta get their rest too, after all. But I appreciate y'all for being here and for hanging out. And Fortune and Captain Starburner. Captain Star, Fortune, if you're still lurking, once again, I really appreciate the raids. Thank you so much. I'm sorry I couldn't give you a little bit more fanfare out in the woods. My facilities are a little bit more limited out there. You know, we got what we can. But I appreciate you nonetheless, and I really hope you guys had a fantastic night playing Pokemon. I did take note. The new Pokemon, in fact. I hope you're enjoying that game. I know there's been a lot of heated discussion about aspects of it. So if you're playing it and you're liking it, that's all that matters. Let's see, who else is awake in the dead of night on this fine October evening, and we can go send a little holiday cheer to. Yes? Yes? Let me toss you back in OBS, chat. As we peruse. Oh, actually. Okay, I don't get to raid this person very often. And I will warn you ahead of time, this is an ASMR streamer. So we're going into someplace a little more chill, even more chill than what we were just doing, but kind of in the same vein. But their name is Glitchika, or Glitchy. Yeah, so for any ASMR fans, this should be a welcome little kind of send-off, and anyone else, you know, maybe stick around for just a minute, say hi. They do other things besides ASMR. They are a graphic designer, I believe, or, hold on, visual designer. So, okay, yeah, I guess graphic designer. They do other cool stuff. So, at the very least, drop them a follow for that, because they're actually a genuinely really talented individual. So, we are going to go raid them. I think, yeah, they haven't been going for too super long. And I like, at least for nights like this, to go somewhere a little bit more chill. So for our raid message... We're gonna do one of these. Not egg. Are you kidding me? There's no pumpkin? There's no pumpkin emote? In the normal emotes? What? Impossible. Fine, we'll just do a ghost. I know there's a ghost. There's a cute little ghost. That is a shame. Big shame. Oh, I forgot to... I wasted it. elsewhere, and I have to recopy it again. It's fine. All right. I know this is kind of an awkward time for us because we don't normally stream on Sundays, but thank you everyone so much for joining me. We'll see you again here on Tuesday. Same time as normal, 5:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We'll probably be continuing our Hades run. A little bit more action-y, but I hope you have a wonderful rest of your weekend. Have a great start to your week. Those of us who start work on Monday, hopefully it goes well. But until then, wherever you hang those hats, wherever you rest those weary souls, I wish you well. Until next time, ciao for now.